Tim, are you ready? Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to HCD's office hours for ESG. My name is Anthony Zepeda, and I will be your moderator for today's office hour session. We're going to hold for just a minute for more of our colleagues to join us for today's session. In the meantime, I would like you all to introduce yourself in the chat with your
All right, sorry everyone. There's some technical difficulties. Anthony is frozen and he is trying to get back on.
Good morning. All had some technical difficulties there. Am I in the meeting? Tim, can you see me?
You're here.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes,
Anthony.
sir. You're back.
Fantastic. Okay, let's get started. Next slide, please. How to ask a question. All questions must be submitted in the question box. Please type your organization and question into the question box, and then our team will read your questions out loud, and at the end of the presentation, we will provide answers. And we will do our best to provide answers throughout the presentation within the Q&A box. And so once again, we recommend and ask that you put your questions in the question box as they get lost in the chat quickly. And for those of you who may have been here signing on when I was having technical difficulties, welcome to today's ESG office hours. My name is Anthony Zepeda, and I'm serving as today's moderator. If you are just joining us, please go to the chat and introduce yourself with your name and the region you represent. Thank you. Next slide, please. Please note that the slides and the recording will be sent to all participants within approximately 2 weeks of today's session. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer, but generally it takes about 2 weeks. And a reminder that this session is being recorded. And next slide, please. So a few updates. The application portal is now open, and the application deadline remains March 28, 2025. We will not be extending that. We believe that the application can be reasonably completed within that time allotted. And more importantly, we want to begin awarding the funds and getting standard agreements executed as quickly as possible to maximize your time to expend the funds in your community. If you are a disaster impacted by the Southern California fires, you can elect to submit up to 6 months later than the deadline by checking the box that you are requesting an extension and briefly providing a reason for electing extended deadline. Now that extended deadline is only for those areas impacted by the Southern California fires, and it does not extend the timeline in which the funds can be expended. The expenditure deadline will remain the same. It's set by HUD and it cannot be moved. If you have additional questions regarding the schedule, please reach out to us offline. Next slide, please. This slide shows a schedule of the upcoming office hours. Today, we're having an eCivis application demo. We're going to go through it line by line, and hopefully you'll become very familiar with it. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to have an application TA session, a very unique session where we are just going to be here to answer your questions regarding the 2024 NOFA application. And March 12th, we haven't decided yet, but it's probably going to be related to submitting and completing your application on time. Next slide, please. Some quick reminders on the 2023 grants, your current contracts. The expenditure deadline is quickly approaching. It's going to go by fast, August 17th, 2025. This is the cutoff date for all expenses incurred under current 2023 contracts. 80% of your ESG award must be expended by June 17th, just a few months away. We'll provide reminders throughout our office hours and through emails on a regular basis. And reach out to us if you need assistance or having an issue with getting your money deployed in your community. Also, tying into the expenditure deadline, we recommend grantees submit RFFs on a monthly basis. This will expedite the RFF review process and result in faster reimbursement, as opposed to submitting multiple RFFs all at once. At minimum, your standard agreement state RFFs must be submitted on at least a quarterly basis, but we recommend monthly. Next slide, please. And on that note of RFFs, we sent out welcome letters about a month ago, and then I brought this up at our last office hours as well. When you're submitting your first RFF for the 2023 contracts, full backup documentation is required for all line items listed on your expense report, and that's per component. So our rapid rehousing and HP must have approved policies and procedures in place. We also ask that you redact all personally identifying information, or PII. Next slide, please. And a reminder that was for the first RFF, which requires full documentation. For the second RFF and all subsequent RFFs after the first, we need supporting documentation for 2 line items per component. The grantee can select the line items to document. And if it's rapid rehousing or homelessness prevention, we need you to include full client files and to redact all PII. And one caveat is that HCD ESG does reserve the right to request additional documentation if applicable to your particular RFF. Next slide, please. And as always, if you have questions regarding your RFFs or any ESG related items, please reach out to your ESG team representative. Our contact information is listed on the slides, or you can send a general question to the ESG NOFA inbox. The email address is listed below, and we have someone monitoring that during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, so you will receive a response. Next slide, please. And we're going to dive right into today's Spotlight series. It's going to be a live demonstration of the 2024 ESG NOFA application in eCivis. Our manager, Tim Coop-Whitley, will be presenting a live demonstration, and I will now turn it over to Tim.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. And good morning to everybody here. All right, so so as our office hours have indicated, this hour is going to be dedicated to going through the application demonstration for the 2024 ESG application portal that was just recently opened. So I know some of our folks on the call today have already begun their draft applications, so that's wonderful to see that that many of you have already started this process. But I wanted just to start from the very beginning for those of you who may be on the call that may be new to this this funding round, and maybe you have not applied for funding for ESG prior, and you want to know like the step-by-step process of how to get there. So so I wanted to start with of how to access, of how to apply, and creating an account in eCivis. And for those who may not have done that before, for those of our existing eCivis users that are already familiar with how to access this, we'll go over that part as well. But for anybody that's new, I want to go kind of from the very beginning. So if I'm on the HCD main website here, as you can see on the screen, and then I'm going to navigate to grants and funding, and then I'm going to go to all of our active programs that HCD is currently offers, and then I will navigate to the ESG Emergency Solutions Grant webpage. Okay. Next, you'll see on the screen here that this is our main ESG website here, and and some of us are familiar with this. And for those who may be new, if you want to just navigate from the very beginning, and you can see some of these icons down here below, and so you can see where our notice of funding availability is, which includes our open NOFA right here. You can see some of our other tabs here for eligibility, awards, that sort of thing. So, but what we're going to do here is we're going to click on the Apply Now icon, and you can see this comes up here to apply for ESG funding to visit this website here. Okay, so for anybody new or even our existing users, you can access the eCivis portal application this way as well. Okay, so once you click on that link, then you can see the eCivis screen will open, and then you can see all of the existing solicitations that are available in eCivis. And then the one that you're going to want to is for ESG, which says ESG regular, and it's the 2024 ESG allocation application. Okay, so we'll click on that one. And then we'll come up with a screen here. So you can see this describes the 2024 application information. We have an overview of what our current open NOFA is. And so there's a summary here. If you have not read this yet, this is also available in our NOFA as well. You can click on the different tabs here as well. If you haven't done so already, you can click on eligibility, which has some eligibility notes, and the continuum of care or COC application selection process. So for those of you who may not have read through this yet, this is available for your reading at any time. We also have the financial tab as well, and then contact information for the ESG program. And then lastly, most importantly, what everybody will want to know is this is the files tab. Okay, so this files tab here will contain important documents for you as the applicant to download ahead of time and fill out to submit with your application. Okay, so for those want to know where this files tab here, this is where it's at. We have different guides and different forms, and also links to many of our federal regulations, as you can see on the screen. So we do have the ESG guidelines link, as well as a eCivis manual for applicants. And so this is super, super helpful. If you ever need help kind of navigating eCivis, or if you want to know a step-by-step process of how to do something, this is super helpful. We have a link to our NOFA as well here. And then additionally, right below that, we have all of our required forms. And so as we go through the step-by-step process of submitting the different sections of the application, there will be certain sections that require a submission of a particular form. So so you're going to want to make sure that you know which ones are required here. So we have for indirect costs, we have a budget worksheet as here. We have outcomes by race and ethnicity, which is a workbook as well. We have the COC recommendation form, which is new for this funding cycle. And so this is also a required form. So please make sure that you access this, fill it out, and have it signed, and then upload in the applicable section of the application. We also have some standard forms as well, which is our government agency taxpayer ID form, also known as the TIN, for any local government governments, such as cities or counties. This is the one you will use. We have our STD 204 form as well for any nonprofits that are going to be applying. This will be a required form as well. And then additionally, we have our resolution templates. So we have our 3-year resolution template, additionally our 1-year resolution template, and these are also available on the ESG website as well. So, but this files tab will be super important to access for all the required forms. So please take note of this section when preparing your application. Okay, so the next step that you'll want to do is you're going to want to click apply, which is right above the tabs here. Okay, so then it'll bring you to this screen here, which says welcome to the portal, and it has the eCivis icon here as well. So before we dive into the application steps, if there's anybody on the call today that maybe does not have an eCivis account yet, maybe you're new to eCivis, you don't have an account created yet, we want to make sure that you are familiar with how to set up an account. And for those of you who already have existing eCivis accounts, just stay patient for just a moment while we go through this process. So if you don't have an account yet, you're going to want to click on the link provided that says create an account. Okay, and then this little screen will come up for your new account setup. Okay, so pretty straightforward. You're going to put your first and last name if there's a single contact at your organization. If it's the authorized rep, you can list them. If it's a different person, we leave that up to the applicant to put that. And then you will provide an email address and and you will choose your password and then click on the sign up hyperlink. Okay, so I do want to make a special note about this process. Okay, so HCD encourages and definitely would like to see a shared organizational email address provided if you are setting up a new account in eCivis. Okay. Personal email addresses are not going to be accepted. Okay, so any personal email addresses that use such as Gmail, Yahoo, any other domain that you may have, that is not a best practice, and we will, if applications are submitted with a personal email address, we will be reaching out to you for further explanations. Okay, so we definitely encourage you to use, if available, a shared organizational email address, and the reason for that is a couple of things. And if your organization is going to have multiple users that are going to help with the application, let's just say it's not going to be set to one person, and if one person is not available, we want to have somebody else working on the application. We definitely understand the different scenarios that can happen. However, the eCivis system will only allow one email address when working on the application. Okay, so unfortunately, we can't bend that rule. We can't change it. It's only allowed for one email address. Okay, so so that's why we encourage in this setup process that it is, if available, if it's a shared organizational email, that is definitely fine. And that way, if one person is not available at a particular day to work on the application, somebody else in your organization can step in, and that's completely fine. Okay, so number one, no personal email addresses will be allowed. And then if available, if you have a shared organizational email, that would be preferred. If you still want to set up with a personal organizational email, say if there's a main contact at your organization that will be the eCivis account holder, that's fine as well. But just understand, if it is set up that way, that is the only person who can access the application. Okay, so if it's a personal work email, that's completely fine as well, but only that person will be able to work on the application. No other users can be added. And so I just want to make sure that that is clear to everybody on the call today. If you have additional questions on this process, please reach out to the ESG NOFA inbox, and we can further guide you on that. Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log in as a user here for any of our existing users here. And so for our existing eCivis account holders, you're going to want to enter your existing account number. I'm sorry, your existing email address that is associated with eCivis, and then your password, and then you're going to click on portal login. So no need to click on Grants Network. That is not for this process. So you will always click on portal login. Okay, and for our existing eCivis users, this page may be quite familiar. You know what this is, and this is the process for starting the application. So from there, you will click the green hyperlink button here, which is seen to create new application. Sometimes it takes a few seconds to start. Okay, there we go. And so once you click on that information, then you will be directed to log in again with your credentials. And so you're going to click on this sign in button that appears here. And then again, we're always going to click on that portal login. So do not click on eCivis login. It's always going to be the portal. Okay. And then one more time, you will be asked to log in with your eCivis information. Okay. All right. And so the first step in the application process is to create a profile. Okay. And so you'll see this little this little thing come up here, and then you're going to click the open button. And then as this screen will open, and then you will begin to create your applicant profile, okay? And so again, any field that has a red asterisk next to it is going to be required. And so just make sure that those fields are filled in with information. Anything that does not have an asterisk is not required and is optional. So, but we do encourage to fill in as much information as available and possible. And so with this, the profile can be complete as possible. Okay, so again, the first and last name of the application profile that is left up to the applicant. So if it's going to be a particular contact person at your organization, this is where you put that information. If it's going to be something else, you can, if it's the name of your authorized representative as listed in your resolution, you can put that there. So this is up to the applicant's decision as far as the contact person. And so please make sure that this is the person that we can connect with for the application. So that person's listed there, okay? And then you will list your organization and company, also any organization website, and then also the address, city, and state are required. So this is where you'll put in your organization's information. And then again, anything with a red asterisk will be required. Also, a little bit about your organization will be required as well. So the EIN number, the authorized representative and their title, and then also their email, phone number, and any business finance representative name as well. Okay, and then additionally, the address information will be asked as well, and so you can fill in everything that is required. Any information field that you may not be sure of that is not required, you are welcome to leave blank. But if you know the information, you can fill that in as well. Okay, so pretty straightforward. So just go ahead and fill in as much information as available. Okay, and then all the way at the bottom. And then again, these are optional fields if it's not marked with a red asterisk. So feel free to enter as you would like. And then please note at the bottom that you have a couple different options here. So you can save this draft if you need to come back to it later. If you're not quite finished with it, you can always save it and come back to it and finish it. If you are finished with creating your profile, you're going to click the big large blue button that will create your profile. All right, and then as you can see in the profile little box here, it says mark complete. If you need to go back and edit this at any time, that is available as well if you want to edit that. So, okay. All right, then after that is complete, then you will be directed to start on the application process. And so this little blue button down here at the bottom is the button that you're going to want to click. All right. So this is the section with the several different application sections. Okay, so you can see that there's several to go right here. Okay, so anything that says action required, that says open, these sections will need to be completed individually. Okay. So we're going to start with the application section, and keep in mind that you can complete different sections at different times. You do not have to do them in order. You can always come back to them if they're not all the way complete yet. So don't feel like you have to do everything at once. We definitely want to give you as much time as you can up until the due date to get all the information in the application. Okay, so this opens our application section. And so some of you on the call here maybe have already seen this, have kind of taken a look at it already. For those of you who have not yet done this, this is what it looks like, okay? So this part right here is a required field. So the application project title is what you're gonna want to enter right here. And so this is up to your organization's decision as far as what the title of the project is going to be. So there's no, HCD does not give any particular guidance for this. So that is up to you, organization's decision as far as what to put here. So. Okay. Then, as mentioned earlier, in the beginning of this, we mentioned for applicants that may have been impacted by the Los Angeles region fires, there is right at the top of the application here, there is an extension for those impacted for an additional 6 months to apply. So right at the top here is where you can indicate if your area was impacted or not, and you can click this yes box if so. If you were not impacted in any way, you can move right past this and you don't have to click anything, okay? So however, for those that may be impacted and they would like the extension to submit, the extension will be an additional 6 months, which will be September 28th, 2025 to submit the application. So as another reminder, submitting a late application does not result in a later expenditure deadline for the 2024 funds, okay? So we definitely encourage you to apply on time if you can. However, we want to allow that extra time for those that may need that extra time to submit the application if necessary, okay? And so if we click on this box, if you were impacted, then a little box will come up and we do ask that you provide a brief description of how you were impacted by the Southern California fires. And so if that is the case for you, just please make sure that you provide a brief little description and narrative to us in the application, okay? All right. So, so this section here kind of goes through the different links that are available, and it talks about the ESG program. And so these are informational links. We have our Code of Federal Regulations link as well. We have a link to our 2024 NOFA, our state guidelines that were released in December of last year. We have a link to those as well. And then additionally, our main program ESG website on the HCD site. Also, there are direct links to our resolution templates for those who may not have seen these templates yet. They are also on the ESG website as well, but they are hyperlinked as well if you want to access those templates as well for your resolution, okay? Then as you go down the screen here, you'll see information about submitting the application, the due date, and that this is an over-counted process. And so we will continuously evaluate and accept applications and until all funds are exhausted, okay? And then all forms and necessary attachments, as I mentioned before, we went to this screen here, are on the Files tab. And so any required forms that need to be submitted in the application can be found on the Files tab. And we also have a hyperlink here to that solicitation tab. And so if you need to go back to that tab, you can easily access that here, okay? And then we move on to threshold requirements. And so this kind of goes through the different documents that can be required. Some are optional, some are as applicable. So not everything here will be required, but whatever will be applicable to your application and your organization. So we have a link to our NOFA here as well. So if you need to access the NOFA for any kind of reason, this is linked here as well. And so the items to include, of course, we've created our profile. We're going to have to create a budget and also do our goals as well. So, and so applicants must include all of the following documentation as required. And so some of this information was explained on the Files tab, such as the Government TIN form, the STD 204 for all nonprofits and non-governmental organizations, an active UEI, formerly DUNS, and active registration on sam.gov. If you do not have an active registration already, then you can click on this hyperlink here, and then you can apply for registration on that website. And additionally, there's additional requirements listed in this list here for the different components that you may be applying for. We're going to go through those sections as well as applicable. If you're not applying for those components, you can skip over those sections. Okay. Authorizing resolution is required on an HCD approved template and must be approved by the applicant's governing board. And these can be found on our website as well. We have different certifications, and we have a continuum of care or COC recommendation form, which is new for this funding cycle. And so that is located on the files tab of the solicitation. So please make sure that you access that, have it filled out for nonprofits and community agencies applying on behalf of the COC. And additionally, we have the indirect cost certification. If you're going to be applying for indirect costs, match certification, and legislative information, racial equity, and general certification. So these are just other sections of the application, which we will go through as well. Okay, so a lot of this, I know this might seem like a lot of reading and a lot of information, so please take your time in reading through this information and getting familiar with what is required. We won't go through every single line here in the office hours, but just please take the time to read through this and just get familiar with the requirements of the program and what is required to submit with your application. Okay. So application steps. So we've created a profile. We've already done that part. And so now in the application section, section 2, any applicable forms that are required are listed here. And then you will need to upload that information down below, which we will get to in a moment. So if you're a local government, such as a city or county, you're going to want to make sure that you fill out the government agency taxpayer ID form, also known as the TIN. Any JPA documents, if applicable, your authorizing resolution with the applicable template that your organization is choosing to do. You do not need to submit both, and so please make sure that you can submit either the 1 or the 3, not both. Active registration on SAM.gov, single audit, and then for the component policies and procedures, we're going to go through that later down this screen here as well. And then step 2, environmental review requirements. Step 3, legislative contact information. Step 4, racial equity, and finally, match exemption application, which is optional. All right, section 3. You're gonna create a budget, budgets and goals, and then step 2, a budget narrative will need to be provided, and then also completed goals as well as step 3. Section 4, certifications and threshold recognition. And again, all of these forms can be found on the Files tab of the solicitation. And so our COC recommendation form will be required from all applicants. Indirect cost certification, please make sure that you read through these this text that is below the certification if you are applying for this. And then if your agency has an approved indirect cost rate that is above the 15% de minimis, you will have an opportunity to upload a copy of that indirect cost rate agreement issued from a cognizant federal agency. If your agency is claiming indirect costs, please upload that budget worksheet, which is on the Files tab. Match certification must be signed by the authorized representative as listed in your resolution, and general work certification, and then threshold requirements recognition, just to make sure that everything was answered and then every document that was required is provided. Okay. Again, just a reminder, all HCD funding decisions are final. So this section is where you're going to fill out the applicant name, your organization name. Here, you're going to find your COC, which is a drop-down list as here as well. And for those of you who may have tried to access the portal earlier this week and you did not see your COC number, this has been recently fixed. And so for those of you who maybe noticed that prior, you can go back into the application now, and your COC number, as listed in the Appendix A of the NOFA, will be listed here. Okay, so to find your COC number, please refer back to the Appendix A of the NOFA and to find your number here, and then please go through the drop-down list and select your area or your COC number here. Okay, so we're just going to click Sacramento City and Counties since we are located in Sacramento. Then the next section, according to the amounts that are listed in Appendix A of the NOFA, you will enter your allocation amount as noted in Appendix A. And sometimes eCivis can be a little tricky with characters, so make sure that you can don't put anything with characters, and then the system will kind of update it on its own. And then you're going to select your government agency organization type. So whichever applies to you, you will select this section. And then you're going to upload anything that's applicable to this application for you, and then also any type of required information. If it has a red asterisk here, you're going to upload. So on this section here, it's going to be your governing board resolution. If you have additional uploads, such as a designee letter or anything additional, there are options for you to upload multiple documents if necessary. Okay. Okay, moving on to the UEI, formerly known as DUNS, and SAM.gov registration. So evidence of an active number with the correct applicant address is required as a part of the application, and so you must provide a copy of this search result. And it can be obtained by clicking on the System of Award Management, and then on the SAM.gov website, you'll be directed on how to complete that registration and provide proof. And then once you have that document, you can upload that here as the active registration proof. Okay. And moving on to single audit and Form 990 requirements. So please make sure that you read through this section here. And then this question right below this section is a required question. And so you will put the applicable answer here. Okay. Yes or no. Okay, if you do answer yes, you will be prompted to answer some additional questions. And so if your answer is yes, please make sure that you answer all additional questions that are outlined below. Okay, and then if your answer is no, you should be prompted to keep moving on the application. Okay, so please note that if it is yes, please upload and complete all the other questions. If your answer is yes, or eCivis will not allow you to move forward. So please make note of that. Okay, moving on to street outreach requirements as our first component for the application. So if you are going to be applying for the street outreach component, you can see the requirements here that are listed here for that must be included. Okay, we do have our hyperlink to our street outreach policy on our website if you want to access that as well. And then if you're applying for street outreach, you'll be prompted with a yes or no question. If your answer is yes, you also be prompted with additional questions, okay? And so do you have written policies in place? Yes or no? If you do have something, you will give the opportunity to upload your street outreach policies and procedures on this section here, okay? And again, if you're not applying for street outreach and you select no, you can just keep moving on the application. There's nothing else to fill out, okay? So, and then we move on to the next component, which is emergency shelter. And so same idea, if you're applying for the emergency shelter component, you're going to be asked that question if you are applying. If you are applying with yes, then additional questions will pop up for you, okay? And then you also have the opportunity to upload those policies and procedures if you have them in place. Then next we go to rapid rehousing, and same process. If you're applying for rapid rehousing, you'll be asked the question if you are applying, and if you have written policies in place. And have your rapid rehousing policies and procedures been approved by HCD EHG staff? Okay, so this is an opportunity if they have been reviewed, if you've received communication from the ESG team regarding if your procedures are approved or not, you can indicate your answer there. If you do have written policies and they've been approved, that approval letter can be uploaded here, and then also your policy and procedures documents can be uploaded here. So please note that our ESG staff is currently sending out approval letters for different components of the ESG program. So you should be receiving emails from our ESG specialists regarding those approvals. And so this is the section of the application where you upload those approval letters, okay? And so there's language in the emails that have been going out to those folks about to keep that letter, save that letter. And this is the section where you upload those approval letters so we know that your policies and procedures have been reviewed already and that they are approved for this application. Okay, next we go into homelessness prevention, or HP, and this same here as well. So if you are applying for this component, you'll be asked some questions. And do you have written policies in place? If so, answer the appropriate answer. And if they've been reviewed and approved by our ESG staff, you can upload that approval letter there as well. So the same process for any component that you're applying for. If you're not applying for it, of course, you're going to be selecting the no option, and then you can just keep moving on the application. Okay, and then finally on this section, we have reminders about your resolution, certain forms that are required. You'll be asked for questions. Have you completed the budget? Have you completed the goals? All of that will be asked here. So if you mark no, then you can move here, and then you can upload information right here. If you have completed it, you can mark yes there, and then you can upload anything additional that you want to upload to us if necessary, okay? And then below here, the budget worksheet and application goals are available right there. So, and then again, you can always come back to this section if you're not done with it, if you want to save your work, okay? That's where you click Save Draft, and you can always come back, and if you don't have everything ready to submit right away, you can always come back, or if you happen to be complete, if you are done with this section, then we are going to mark complete. Then once we do that, you can see the little button here that shows complete. And again, if you want to go back and change anything or change a document, upload, anything like that, you can always click the edit button, and you can always go back and change anything that you want to change. So, okay. So we'll just, for purposes of this, we're just going to keep going. We're going to go into environmental review. So when we open this section here, you'll see, okay, there's nothing here. What do I do? So now we have to click on this little green button that says add new item. Okay, so once we click on that green button, this will pop up here. Okay, so we have the environmental review section for units of general purpose local government and the different environmental review requirements. So please take the time to read through this section and make sure you're familiar with this process. If you have questions about the environmental review process, please reach out to us offline at the ESG NOFA inbox, and we'd be happy to answer your questions regarding this section of the application. So please make sure you read through all of the applicable information here and requirements. There is a hyperlink here as well to review the environmental review for activity project that is exempt or category excluded, not subject to this information here, the CFR. So please review that if necessary. And then if you need to, we're going to have you describe the project program compliance with the CFR here. So this section, so this is a required field to fill out. And then right below that, any things that you'd like to upload, there are different additional upload options here at the bottom of this section to upload documents here as well. So you can see there's several different upload options here. So there's probably a lot here. You don't have to choose all of them, of course, but as many as you need will be there. So when we click on try to mark complete, if you're not complete, oh, that means we needed to fill in something. So that means we need to fill in some information, and then that part will go away as well. All right. So now we're ready to mark complete. All right, then this little message will come up that you have met the requirements for this step. And so once you see this little green little window here, you're welcome to hit close. And then this will show as complete as well. So again, if you can always save the draft. If you want to come back to it later, that's always an option as well. So we're going to keep moving on, and we're going to go to legislative contacts. This will be the same process. It will be a blank screen like this, but we're going to click new item. Then all of our legislative contact information will appear here. So, so we do ask the applicants to select all counties in which the subrecipient is or the activity location will be. So please, this is a multiple step. If there's multiple areas, if it's just one area, please click that. So this option here will be multiple if necessary. And then provide the legislative and congressional information for the applicant and the applicant's subrecipient, and each activity location. If the location is different than in the application, okay? And so you can see here, this is all listed with the California State Assembly members, California State Senators, and the United States House of Representatives as well. So if you know who your representative is, you can just click on them. If you're not sure, these hyperlinks will take you to their websites and you can look up that information, okay? And then click all the way to the bottom. And then once you've done that part, you can mark complete. And then the green thing will come up again so that you've completed this step and you are now welcome to hit close. All right, next section will be the racial equity. And we're going to click that green button that says new item. So this part, for those who may have applied to our funding cycle last year for the 2023 funding cycle, you may notice that this section is a little different this year. And so please take note of the new requirements for this section. Okay, so we do have in the files tab of the ESG solicitation, we do have a workbook that is titled HMIS. Continuum of Care or COC Outcomes by Race and Ethnicity 2024. So make sure that you download this file from the Files tab and complete that workbook. And then this is where you will upload that completed workbook once you have completed that information. So okay, so please read the instructions here, and then the additional instructions on how to do this, and then you will upload your completed workbook in this section right here. If you have additional uploads, you may upload that as well. You can also, this question is required as well. So if you applied last year under our 2023 ESG NOFAs, you'll be prompted to answer yes or no. If you do mark yes, you will, this section is complete. But if you do answer no, if you did not apply, there will be some additional questions that you'll have to go through if you did not apply for last year's funding cycle. So please make note, if you do answer no, all of the remaining questions will be required to answer. Okay. But if you do click yes, you can click here, and then you can click your submission date if applicable, or you can just mark this as complete. All right, then our green box will come up again, and then we are welcome to hit close. Okay, moving on to match exemptions. We're going to click our green box, new item. Okay, and keep in mind that this section of the application is optional, so for match exemption. So if your organization will not be applying for this, you can mark this as complete if this is not applicable for your organization's application. So, but please, if you are going to be applying for match exemption, please take note of the requirements and the policies regarding the ESG match policy. So if you're unfamiliar with this or need additional reminders of what this means, we do have a hyperlink here for the ESG match policy. And so this section outlines what the exemption means and what the general requirements are, and then the point awarding system about how this works. And so 2 points are allocated to the following subrecipients, which are considered rural and therefore disproportionately likely to be under-resourced. So if your area is listed here, you'll receive 2 points if applying. Further down, 3 points are allocated that meet either of the following criteria. And so these are not check boxes, so you don't have to check these or anything. They're just listed this way. So, and then up to 5 points are allocated to subrecipients who indicate they're part of an application they would like to receive the match exemption. So we do have a point rating system of the points that you'll receive if you're going to be utilizing this match part of the application. So please make sure you read through these different point awards systems that we have in place and reach out with any questions on that. So, and again, you can find your COC here if you are going to be applying for this section, and then there's applicable questions down here that you will need to answer if necessary for if you're applying for that. So please answer the below questions here, provide any detailed answers here, circumstances, and additional answers here. And then finally, the certification must be signed by the authorized representative as named in your resolution. And so you can enter their information here, and then you can upload the signed copy once it's all filled out and signed. Then this is where you upload it. Okay. So we're going to mark this as complete. Okay, next we're going to move on to the match worksheet. If your organization will be applying for the match, we're going to click on that green button one more time. And this is our match certification for the 2024 application. So you can see our list of requirements here. We also have a link to our Code of Federal Regulations if you would like to read more information about the match requirements. And then we also have listed the eligible types of match. And so please make sure that you read through this if this is new for you this year. For those of you may have seen this already and you're familiar with this process. So please make sure you read through this just to refamiliarize yourself with the eligible types. And then it goes on to eligible sources of match. And so make sure that this is, you understand the eligible sources that are allowed under the ESG program. And please also refer to the match policy if necessary, and make sure that the Code of Federal Regulations are understood as well. So instructions are to enter your organization's name and the proposed application amount. And so some of these information here will be required for you to list. If necessary. There we go, a little bit of a glitch there. Okay, there we go. And then also additional information and instructions on cash match. So please make sure that that you read through this and then answer the applicable question down here. Is how many sources descriptions of cash match do you need to enter? This is a required, and so please enter the appropriate number for your organization. And then also in-kind match instructions here as well. And then you'll be prompted to enter that applicable number as well. And then finally at the bottom, certification must be signed by your authorized representative. And same as the last page, you go through these steps here and then upload your signed copy at the bottom. All right, moving on. Okay, indirect cost certification. We're almost there. So we're going to get to our new item button here. Okay, so indirect cost certification. So here you will enter your organization name, okay? And then you'll go through some series of questions if you will seek reimbursement for indirect costs for the 2024 funding cycle. So if it is going to be yes, click that. Of course, if it's no, you can click no. Will your organization be requesting more than the 15% de minimis rate? So keep in mind that for this funding cycle, the de minimis rate did go up to 15%. It used to be 10, so it is now 15. So if you're going to be requesting more, you're going to click the yes button. Okay, and if you're claiming more than the 15%, as I stated before earlier, you will need to upload a copy of your negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, okay, that has been approved by a federal cognizant agency and that shows the approved indirect cost rate percentage, okay? So if that is the case, you wanna make sure that you have that approval letter in hand, that you have the agreement, and that this is the place where you can upload that information and also upload the cost allocation plan. So there's two spots where you can upload these documents if applicable for your organization, okay? If you won't be requesting more than that, obviously we're going to select the no option and you won't be required to fill in this information. So only if yes, you'll be required to upload that information as indicated on the screen here. So just another note about this, if you do not upload one of the above items, we will not consider your agency as being approved for a higher rate than the 15% de minimis, okay? So please make note of that. Like if we don't have any of those documents that are uploaded on the application, then HCD will know that, that it is going to be at the 15% de minimis and no other, okay? So please make note of that when completing this section. And then there's sections here, language here about certifying, and some different links as well, if applicable, if you'd like to read through that. And then the certification at the bottom, same as the other screens, must be signed and filled out with the authorized representative's name and signature, and then upload that at the bottom here. Okay, we're going to mark this as complete. All right, moving on, and then we have our general certifications. This is the last big section. Okay, so general certifications here. And so this section is pretty lengthy, so please take the time to read through it if you haven't yet. It talks about our fair housing requirements, anti-displacement and relocation plan, policies and regulations on drug-free workplace, and so on. And so this is pretty lengthy, so we won't go through everything right now, but please make sure that that you read through this and understand everything that these things are stating, and if it's applicable to understand. So a lot of information here. We talk about matching funds, confidentiality, compliance, homeless persons involvement. A lot of important information here to read through and be familiar with. So please take the time to read through all of this important information. And at the bottom, you'll be prompted to put in the applicant name and then agree and acknowledge here as well, and then listing your authorized representative name and title and signature, and then you'll be able to get that signed and then upload a copy of that here. All right. Then we're going to click close. And then finally, let's go into our budget. And I think, let's see, budget is not approved. Okay, so I think to use the following link to view the application budget. So Amanda, did you want to kind of step in and talk about this real quick, if you're available?
Sure.
I think is this will be a new window, looks like. Open a new window.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
Perfect. All right, can everybody see my budget screen here?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so so this is the budget. So you will just to kind of go over this section again. So the hyperlink is available here in the application template. So you will need to copy this address, and they'll open it into a new window for you. Okay, so I don't believe it's set up as a hyperlink. So please take note that you will need to copy this and open in a new window, and this will bring you to the the budget for the application. So for those, so I know we have people on the call today that already know this process, that have done this before. So, but for people that may be new, this is what the budget worksheet will look like. Okay, so if you are applying for street outreach, you will be able to enter your budget information here. And then something new for this year is we actually have the indirect costs that are coupled actually with each component, okay? And so we haven't had this in prior years, so this is something that's new. We hope that'll help the application budget process a little bit easier for everybody. And so just please take note if you're going to be doing indirect costs for each of these components, that you can list those costs here as well in the same tab as your component. Okay. Same for emergency shelter. You have your costs here, and then any indirect costs associated with emergency shelter. For homelessness prevention, or HP, same process as well.
Tim, can you just stop for a second?
Sure.
I just wanted to let everybody know, please, please make sure you enter everything into the cost column only. Do not enter anything into the units, unit cost, or extended cost, or we will have to send it back to you to be corrected. The cost column is the only one that we need filled in. So please, please, please fill out only the cost column. This is the column that will go into your budget, and it'll make everything work smoothly. So go ahead. Sorry, Tim. I just wanted
Oh,
to
you're
add
good.
that.
Yeah. Okay. And then same for HMIS. And then again, as Amanda indicated, make sure it's in the cost column. And then finally for administration, and this also includes any indirect costs for the administration component, okay? And then we finally have the other, which may or may not be used by some applicants. And so this is optional, I believe, as well. And then down below here, you will have the option, not the option, the opportunity to fill in your budget narrative. And so some of us are familiar with this already. So this process is the same, but just the layout of the budget worksheet is a little bit different. And we hope that it'll be a little bit easier to use this time around. And so for those who may not have seen this before, this is what the budget worksheet looks like, okay? And so once you've done with that, and once you've saved the changes on that, then you can finally click Save Changes. Okay. All right, and then finally, once we've gone through all of those and all of your sections are marked as complete, make sure that these are marked complete. Okay, then once that happens, then this little submit green button will show up here. Okay, this submit button will not be available if all of these sections are not marked as complete. So please take note of that. Okay, so and so all of these will be, if you've marked them as complete and they're all done, this will show up as well. If you need to go back and make any changes, or if something is not all the way complete yet, this little submit green button will not show. Okay, so this will only be available once every section is complete as required. So, and it also gives a countdown, as you can see here. It gives a countdown as far as like how many days are left to submit. So this will be a constant countdown each day that you log into the application portal. It'll show you how many days are left to submit if you have not submitted yet. Okay, so please don't submit this. Please don't click submit if you're not ready to. Okay, so even though I've marked every section as complete, if I'm not ready yet, I want to go back and change stuff. If I want to go back and change an answer, or upload a document that I may not have had yet, and I was waiting for a document, you can go in and click edit and add those things anytime that you want. So don't feel you have to do it all at once. We definitely want to give you all the time that you need up into the deadline to get all of the required documents and upload it as required. So. All right, so I think that kind of covers everything. So I think I'm going to hand it back to Anthony, and I think we will go through any type of questions and that may have showed up in the Q&A.
You're
Anthony,
on
you're
mute,
on mute.
Anthony. Yeah.
Sorry, I am having so many technical difficulties today. We had a couple questions in there. Amanda, did you want to lead off?
Go for it. I'm still answering some
Okay.
stuff.
Currently, I do not see a link to a budget page in our application, and it looks like Amanda is typing an answer to that one.
And I'm
And
just
then
referring them to the ESG NOFA inbox. So if there's technical difficulties with eCivis, please just reach out to your rep or the ESG NOFA inbox so that we can connect with our eCivis people. It's hard to help you through this kind of platform.
yes, and remember that in 2 weeks, we're going to have an open TA as well. So we're going to get a lot of questions that are more specific, like these questions that we're getting right now. And we have one from, can you show us how to print out sections? And on that one, Andrea, why don't you reach out to your rep directly or the ESG NOFA inbox, and we will schedule a meeting to do some TA with you and show you how to do that. You can do it, but we're not going to do that now as we're a little bit over already. And I think that is it. I don't think we have any more questions. Let me look at them. And that looks like everything. So thank you so much, everyone. We're just a little bit over, and hopefully we've answered the majority of your questions. We will be back in 2 weeks for a office hour session. And we do have a few slides here just with resources. Go ahead and go right through those, please, Gio. We have our social media page. And the next slide is also our standard slide that we put up that we would love for you to join our team. And with that, we will see you in 2 weeks, and we will do an open TA on the NOFA application. In the meantime, please reach out to your rep or the ESG NOFA inbox. We'll be happy to assist. Thank you so much. Have a good day.